The kettle had just begun to whistle when I realized I hadn't spoken a word all day. The sound cut through the silence like a bell tolling, reminding me that yes, I was still here. Still breathing, still living, though no one had called to ask. I stood in my kitchen in that old Vermont house, the one Walter and I had built with our own hands, and watched the steam curl up like the thoughts I never voiced. I'm Judith, 71 years old this past spring. Feels strange to say it aloud. Sometimes I still expect to see the younger version of myself in the mirror, the one who wore red lipstick and danced barefoot in the living room with the windows wide open. But mostly I just see time. And lately, I've been asking myself if anything meaningful still waits for me beyond the quiet. It had been 10 years since Walter passed. We had no children. I had friends once. Book club ladies, neighbors, distant cousins, but they've either moved on or drifted away. It wasn't anyone's fault. Grief is a private island. And I had stayed too long. That night started like most others. The sun had sunk behind the hills, and the house had gone dim, lit only by the soft amber of a lamp in the corner and the flickering of a candle I'd placed on the mantel. I had just changed into one of my old silk robes. Not for anyone else, just because it reminded me of how I used to feel in it. Feminine. Real. I made a small dinner. Roasted carrots, a bit of leftover chicken, a glass of wine. I sat by the window and ate slowly, watching the last of the light fade across the lawn. It was just me, the night, and the silence. Until the knock. It wasn't a loud knock, more like a tap. Froze. My heart picked up pace, unsure whether it should leap with anticipation or sink with dread. I wrapped the robe tighter around me and stepped toward the door, peering through the glass. No one. But then I saw the envelope. I opened the door slowly, the wind catching the edge of the silk as I bent to pick it up. No name on the front. Just my address, handwritten in blue ink. I closed the door, locked it, and sat down with the envelope resting in my lap. Inside, a letter. Just one page. Judith, I hope you still live here. I passed through town today and thought of you. I never forgot the way you laughed when we were 17. You once said we'd grow old in a house with roses and a creaky porch swing. I saw one just like it today and I wondered if maybe you had. If this reaches you and you feel like talking, I'll be at the Willow Inn until Friday. Daniel. From the summer of 1971. My first almost love. The boy who made me promise to remember the sound of the ocean. The boy I never thought I'd hear from again. My hands trembled, but my heart fluttered in a way it hadn't in years. I set the letter down and looked at the window. The darkness now complete, the stars barely visible through the sheer curtain. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept replaying the way he looked when we were young, the way he kissed my knuckles instead of my lips when he said goodbye. I had been 17. My parents didn't approve. I left for college and never looked back. Till now. The next morning I woke before dawn, slipped on a cardigan over my robe, and walked barefoot outside. The porch swing, the very one Walter had built, creaked beneath me. I held the letter in my lap and stared out into the pale blue light of early morning. Should I go? What would he look like now? What would I say? Would we recognize one another? Would he still remember that summer? By the time the sun had fully risen, I had made my decision. I drove to the Willow Inn that afternoon. The small ivy-covered place just off the main road hadn't changed much. It looked like it had been lifted straight from a different decade. I walked slowly, every step heavier than the last, my heart pounding. At the front desk I asked softly, "Is Daniel still staying here?" The young woman looked up and smiled. "He's just in the lounge. Shall I tell him someone's here?" I shook my head. "No. I'll find him." I stepped into the lounge. Quiet, warm, with old wooden floors and the smell of books and fireplace smoke. And there he was. Older, of course. But I recognized his posture, the way his hands folded in his lap, the tilt of his head as he read. I stood there for a moment too long. Then he looked up. And he smiled. A slow, soft smile that pulled the years away. "Judith," he said. Just that. Like he had never stopped saying it. I sat across from him, too stunned to speak at first. We talked for 3 hours. About the ocean, the promises we made, the lives we lived separately. He never married. Always meant to, he said, but no one ever quite felt like her. We didn't kiss. We didn't make plans. But we lingered in the warmth of that room, in the knowing that something unspoken had finally circled back. When I left, he pressed a second letter into my hand. I opened it in the car. If this was the last time we saw each other, I'm glad it was like this. But if you ever want company on that porch swing, you know where I'll be. Every summer. Same room. I drove home with tears I didn't know I'd been holding. That night, I wore the silk robe again and sat on the porch until the stars came out. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone.